Hello, and welcome to the Watering Seeds series I'm doing on mental health and other things. And this first little episode will be on healing depression, or as I like to call it, watering the seeds of wholesome depression. Now, when we think of depression, I'm less so talking about major depressive disorder, although it can fit in the category. But I mean anything that ranges from feeling really down day to day, losing interest in activities, or feeling like you're kind of walking through mud through your day, like you're kind of having to exert extra energy than required to get through your day because mood is low. Basically, just mean low mood. Obviously, it can be clinically low mood, but we're not getting into the clinical aspects. And normally the way we see depression, I find in society, is that, the diagnosis and then treatment with medications or do exercise, lifestyle changes, things like that. And I wanted to add another take. I believe in all those methods I listed. But I do believe it can get kind of, we can get blamey. So if medications isn't working, it's your fault for not taking them properly or not finding the right one. Or if exercise isn't working, it's your fault for not doing enough exercise, or it's your fault for not thinking right. Cognitive behavioral therapy teaches how to retrain your thoughts. And there can be a sense of like, oh, you're not doing it right if it's not working for you. Or even if you can be doing all those things right and you're still depressed, so something means it's wrong. And there can be this societal discourse or construct that depression is this overly bad thing. And I wanted to add the idea of, I think it's the way we view depression as can make it a bad or not bad thing. As I believe there's ways to view depression as a very wholesome thing. There's this quote I like is, in a sick society, the mentally unwell are probably the most sane. That can sometimes apply to depression, but not always. But it just shows how sometimes being labeled as depressed or unhappy isn't necessarily a negative thing. You might be kind of onto something, or growth works through pain, and depression can be a way that people can grow. So we're going to look at how to water those wholesome things of depression, the wholesome aspects, the good parts of depression, where if depression is kind of all you have, or something you experience regularly, many people experience seasonal depression, how you can view yourself to feel more empowered and less disempowered, less disconnected from society and function, and actually more connected internally. And in turn, you can connect to others and things like that. So if some of these things spark your interest, I think it'll only get better from here. If not, then see what I can do. So I had some things written down, and so in a sense, with depression, to turn towards it is to kind of expand your vocabulary. Like some of the words I listed. Is it hard to get out of bed? So that's a vocabulary. So if we take the word depression, we start assuming certain things about it, and we want to take out all the assumptions. Like, what is it exactly? What's your flavor of depression? What does it look like for you? We're going to turn away from the generalizing and look more into the uniqueness of the situation. So what are the things that are hard for you? And are they actually essential? And if so, think of your things you have to do every day and honestly ask yourself, what is actually essential? Because I think one of the kind of wholesome seeds of depression, it almost helps you declutter life. Like, you might notice if you're less functional, the stuff that is getting kind of put to the side might not be so important. For example, if you feel you had to wake up at a certain time, like 6 a.m. to start the workday and all that stuff, and with depression, you're, maybe getting up at 10, some tasks are getting unfinished, and you're going to sleep with unfinished tasks, the fact that the day goes on and you're able to have unfinished tasks means they're not super essential. And when it gets to a point where it really has to get done, then it has to get done. And if it doesn't, then it means it kind of didn't have to get done. I'll see if better examples come up. Like even with food, for example, if you go through a day and you really didn't feel like eating, one day of not eating, even 2 days maybe of not eating, not so bad. Maybe you'll finally get the food on the third day or something like that. So even though, yes, there's some physical consequences, your body will find out what's essential for it. And it's kind of allowing the okayness of it. Like the more we can be okay with if things are being procrastinated, things aren't being done, don't add that urgency. Because the more we start adding that urgency, okay, I gotta do this, I have to do this, I have to fight it, then it has a chance of like kind of getting worse. But if we accept it being like, okay, maybe this is telling me something, or maybe realize we really do, then we're feeling way worse after not eating. Then it's like, okay, this is never making me realize how important food is to me. So without that experience, we might not have that same appreciation for food. So it's that balance. See if you can kind of notice what's kind of depression making you realize about the good things of life. Sometimes to realize that happiness is important or peace is important, we go through some depressive episodes that we kind of realize how important happiness is. So, and then we can look at kind of some of the causes of our depression. So for example, if we signed up for, say, working 2 jobs at the same time, and then we realize how unhappy we are, that we're making more money, but we're feeling way less happy, then we might start to have that value shift of like, okay, maybe more money, even though it's helpful, isn't what I need right now. Maybe I can have just as much happiness earning slightly less, or whatever that balance is. It can shift the balance. Doesn't mean like I just stop working and only think about happiness, because there's going to be some barriers there too. But maybe there's something more to what makes you happy. If we're noticing our life hit some sort of barrier, and then the essential things. So even if it feels like there's some essential things that you cannot do, how can you make some of those essential things easy to do? So depression, like some of the wholesome seeds, it can challenge you in a way to make things as easy as possible for you. For example, if normally you wake up at say 5 a.m. and go to the gym and do a 1-hour workout, maybe it's you do a 15-minute workout. You make that workout as easy as possible. Whatever time makes it the easiest possible for you, the least amount of energy. Food too. Maybe normally you spend an hour cooking and you cook yourself this big nutritious meal. Maybe you get a little more frozen food for a little bit, just to make it as easy as possible. Make those essential things happen in easy ways, knowing that one of the hallmarks of the depression is that it can be episodic and it's temporary. So eventually there'll be moments of better mood. It might not be completely better, but those moments of better mood is that where you can capitalize, okay, now I can maybe spend a bit more time cooking or a little bit more time exercising if it feels just as easy to add on. And another wholesome seed offered by depression, especially with these essential things, is how do I care for myself when others might not have shown me how? So oftentimes I find that can be this manifestation of a lack of internal, but not in a blamey thing, of not knowing how we connect with this world in a way that's meaningful and happy. And that not knowing sometimes comes with a not seeing role models out there. As kind of times might show, there might not be the greatest role models out there, or the ones that are might be really hard to find. And so how do you become your own role model? How do you still care even if there's no examples out there? And the beauty of modern times, even as we might be bombarded with certain negativity in media, we also have a ton of resources at our fingertips. So there's so many guides out there how to take care of yourself, and I can almost guarantee Especially if you can combine a few guides, you'll find ones that work really well for you, or even just it could be a way of learning this self-trust and how to really trust yourself when taking care of yourself. And so another wholesome kind of seed can be that depression can help you start a conversation with yourself of like, hey, how did we get here? What is absolutely essential? How do I make it so easy for myself? And how do I care for myself when I feel so down? You know? So we have a lot of thoughts of like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I don't have value, everyone's more successful than me. Those can be some depression inspired thoughts. How do I still care for myself? Because at the end of the day, I'm assuming you're human. And as humans, we have constant needs. And sometimes we're the only ones that are able to meet those needs. If you're fortunate enough to have supports, this is a great time of like, how can I lean on my supports in gentle ways? And sometimes if it's really urgent and you really trust those supports, you can kind of turn the urgency up on those supports. But the most important part is like making sure those are people you can really trust. And if you feel there's a very limited amount of people you can trust, which is another kind of hallmark of depression, can kind of isolate us or think we can't trust anyone, that can be a way to water that inner trust, or practice reaching out just a little bit, knowing that if you already don't really reach out much, almost trusting that when you do reach out, it's not going to be too much, because it's already not that much if you're not reaching out a lot. And another seed to potentially water to kind of help guide yourself through depression and healing is after starting this conversation with yourself and family and things like that, remember, if there was a way out by talking to yourself, it might have already happened already. So talking to yourself out of depression isn't necessarily going to happen. That's kind of why I'm making this. Watching videos of other people talking about it, talking to others that you can trust, getting kind of out of your head can be really helpful. That depression sometimes would want you to stay in your head and to kind of blame yourself and to feel like you have to pull yourself out by the bootstraps. And it's not the case. We're humans. We're very social creatures. We do better healing in kind of groups. Not all your healing is going to happen in groups, but some of it can. So going back to my examples, if food is a challenge, find people maybe to eat with, or eat watching live streams that you can feel kind of connected or whatnot. If working out is hard, join groups. One thing, if I share my own experience, running groups, really great. I'm big into running, and depression could be a way to get into running if that's something for you, or cycling or swimming, like cardio activities, really great for depression. Yoga, really great for healing depression. But those ones have been good for me. But others I heard, like rock climbing, what else? Skating, any skateboarding, dancing. Dance is a really big one. Body movement. You want something that moves your body. And then once you've kind of moved your body, you want media can be a great way to pass time. You want to pick media that's like, watch the media that you watch. If a lot of the media is very sad and dark, like maybe take a break, maybe find something more fun. One gift of depression is like maybe challenge yourself to find more fun, like uplifting media. Sometimes stories can be dark with like satisfying kind of endings that kind of, Pixar makes those movies where there's these like sad moments, but they end up with this like there's this bittersweetness, which can be nice. So it doesn't have to be all just like fun, positivity and kind of toxic positivity. It can there's like a lot of media that's really kind of wholesome and also powerful and has the sadness and anger and all the emotions. So it can be a way to challenge yourself. Like if all you watch is, say, true crime or serial killers and all that stuff, like of course that's gonna, after a certain point, get depressing. If you notice that maybe it's something, maybe it brings you joy, and that's okay. But it starts that inner conversation of like, how does what I consume make me feel good, neutral, not so good? So know that the way out isn't going to be ultimately through convincing yourself of things. It's going to be the interaction with others, with things you see, with the outer world, and how you integrate that interaction with yourself. So that's where the self-talk component is. Like, are you learning new things about yourself? Are you applying new things? That's what's going to get you out, or make you feel maybe a little bit better. And so an experiment you can try on that note is give yourself 2 weeks. So I'm not saying it's impossible to talk yourself out of it, but it's really rare. I'd say like a very small portion of people, like, and it would be, they're already set up to kind of succeed in a sense. Give yourself 2 weeks so if you think like, oh, maybe I can talk myself out of this or something like that, like, well, give yourself a few weeks, see what happens. Kind of journaling can be a great practice so write things down. Like, so today's day 1 and I feel my mood is like 2, 3 out of 10. So say 10 is like happiest I've ever been. 1 is like most miserable I've ever been, and say it's really low. And then check in with yourself 2 weeks later after being like, okay, I'm going to just try to self-power through, if that's a belief you hold, and then see in 2 weeks. And if in 2 weeks, numbers about the same or barely increase, if you went for like a 2 to a 3, it's still pretty low. So that's when I would enlist potentially professional helps. There's therapists, and it doesn't have to be therapists. There's coaches, teachers, just anyone that resonates for you. Sometimes groups and classes and things like that, just whatever you're interested in. But if you're really unsure, therapy is a really safe bet, as those are people specifically trained to work with it. But others, kind of coaches and teachers, like could be teachers of skills you're interested in, they would have to have some you have to have some life experience in it, and you can't always tell. Versus therapists, even though therapists might also not have the life experiences, they'll have the professional experiences at least, which can be just as good. So, and it's going to be people you don't usually talk to. So you want to find people that are new, because it's as similar as like if you could pull yourself out of, if it's the same people you surround yourself with that you're talking to try to get out of, you've had those people before you kind of got into depression. So there's kind of an argument to say that likely they're part of the system, probably super on the unconscious level, that's keeping you also in that low mood. Adding a new voice or a new thing, if one of those people completely changed, maybe that's enough change, but usually change is quite slow in people. So you want to talk to someone you wouldn't normally talk to. That's how you kind of start new conversations. Or if you can find a way to start completely new conversations with similar people, try that. I find that can be a little bit of more of an uphill, but not impossible. And then the last thing is like with people you'd want to talk to have new experiences, you want to have some sort of screening tool. You want to have a way to check with people, like, do they understand? Do they feel you in a sense? You kind of do a vibe check in a sense of, do they kind of know what they're talking about when they say low mood? Do they know what it's like to feel completely hopeless? Because, even though there's many people that do, there's many people that don't. And even professionals trained, say, to work in depression, if they never really experience hopelessness themselves, there might be a bit of a disconnect. Not always, but maybe. They might have experienced talking with a lot of people that maybe felt hopeless, so they're able to work effectively through experience of working with others. But the best, gold standard, in my experience, gold standard is the person themselves has something that really resonates. Doesn't have to be the same thing, but something like depression is common enough. If it was a very unique experience, that's kind of the challenge of getting supported when it's really unique experiences you might be living in. Then it's really hard to find others. Then you feel less supported. Then that's where you really have to lean on your own internal wisdom and experiences and things like that. And the last thing I'll leave you with is, even though you might not be able to talk to yourself out of depression, you can move yourself out of depression. But by move, I mean like also feel yourself. Like when you really feel your body and really allow your body to find a sense of peace. This can be done through like yoga and meditation practices, but even nature therapy, forest therapy is really good for that, of just being in nature and feeling the peace of nature kind of in your bones when you're out in nature can create those subtle shifts. But it requires constant practice and consistency, like daily, if you can. So I'll leave it here, of this first of the series of watering seeds. And this is watering seeds of healing depression. And as always, take such good, gentle care of yourself. And no matter what you're going through, there is support all around you in ways you might not know.